Here is a warning.
There will be light, intermittent showers later.
Oh, and a postscript or two. Right then, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, hello, wherever you are, whenever it is. My name is Paul, I'm also called Knick-Knack. I'm the brains behind Knick-Knack's Daily Teaser, and you'll see those floating past on both my blog, Knick-Knack's Old Peculiar, the world's most boring, repetitive, long-term blog, and here on my YouTube channel, at Mr. Cuddy2977. I do the Daily Teaser, and I'll try and put those up in the corner there, if I can remember. And I also talk about movies that I've seen. I saw In the Earth, the Ben Wheatley film, just recently, and that's quite something to catch. I also talk about TV shows I'm watching or planning to watch. Now, I've penciled in a couple of things I'd like to see, but at the moment, over the past few Fridays, I've seen the classic Doctor Who series, The Crusade. Last night was Friday the 3rd of February, and it was the day I saw The Wheel of Fortune, episode 3 of said series. I wanted to tell you what I thought. Episode 3, The Wheel of Fortune, picks up from where the Night of Jaffa left off, and it shows us Barbara, Jacqueline Hill, still trying desperately to escape from Al Akea's guards, and finally evading capture with the help of Haroon Ed-Din, played by George Little. He's offering to keep her safe from Al Akea, Walter Randall, and his guards. Back in Jaffa, the Doctor and Vicky, William Hartnell and Maureen O'Brien, are choosing new clothes from clothes merchant Ben DeHeer.
It's 21 hours.
From clothes merchant Ben DeHeer. DeHeer is keen to do well, especially given how he knows these two customers are highly placed at court. What he doesn't realise is that the apparent victor is in fact a girl called Vicky. Something Princess Joanna, Jean Marsh, finds out when she hears the pair talking. It's something she manages to turn to advantage, offering help for Vicky and the Doctor, in return for the Doctor keeping his ears peeled at court. Quite frankly, Joanna suspects that her brother, King Richard Coeur de Lion, has plans. Now, what did I make of this episode? Now, what did I make of this episode? One thing I am definitely pleased about is the simple fact that Wheel of Fortune is one of 2 surviving episodes of The Crusade, complete with both audio and video. They've needed cleaning up, and of course the people that turn these things into a Blu-ray presentation have done well with it. But to move on, audio has only been recovered for the missing episodes 2 and 4. There's no video. They've been reconstructed with what they call tele-snaps, and there's a footnote or a postscript about that at the end of the video if you'd like to have a look. Given that there seems to be less photos available for episode 2, last week's episode, The Night of Jaffa, that made parts of that particular episode hard to follow. There's not much talking, for example, whilst Barbara is being chased, or at least I assume being chased through the bazaar. From about 20 minutes and 28 seconds to 20 minutes and 45 seconds, there's no talking, no narration, nothing to tell us what's happening. There's just a few photos and a few sweaty grunting sound effects, which sounds a lot more dubious than I thought it would, but there you go. There's no talking or narration, which is understandable in the original TV broadcast. It's a TV show, after all, and not a radio show. But no narration or talking in what is effectively an audio drama with pictures is awkward. I found The Night of Jaffa in places hard to follow because of those repetitive photos. That is not an issue for The Wheel of Fortune. We can see what's happening. We can follow facial expressions. We can follow the movement of the characters from point A to point B to point C to point D. And for me personally, that's infinitely preferable. I can see as well as hear what's going on. The episode itself is fantastic, and it's one of those ones that's taking the story slowly forward. It's following a thread where Barbara has to look after Haroon's daughter. It's following all sorts of threads. And I've got to say, there is also something else as well. William Hartnell seems to have thoroughly enjoyed making this episode. He seems to be having a lot of fun as an intriguing, politicking court advisor. And it's something I think applies to the regular cast. Maureen O'Brien, William Russell and Jacqueline Hill all seem to be having fun. And Jacqueline Hill in particular seems to be exercising her acting chops in this particular episode. All of them are involved in particular various plots, and Barbara is genuinely facing danger, and the villain of the piece at the end of the episode. The real star of the episode, though, it has to be Jean Marsh as Joanna, going everywhere from charm to wily to intriguing and politicking, and all the way up to confrontational high dudgeon, extreme anger that her brother has arranged a marriage for her with a deadliest enemy without so much as a by your leave or consultation. You have to love it when a guest star carries the scene, carries it well, and puts in a hell of a performance. Which is possibly a good place to leave tonight's review. Now, granted, I may be closing this off quite early and giving the Wheel of Fortune short shift, but that does not mean it's a bad episode. Far from it. It's moved the story forward. It's giving us a superb performance from Jean Marsh, and possibly the most over-the-top last line I've ever heard. And frankly, that means I'm going to be glued to the next episode, The Warlords. On Friday the 10th of February, I will of course have my written and video reviews up on the 11th, and I will be seeing you then. Have fun, take care, be good. Remember, I've given the Wheel of Fortune 3 stars, and please remember to like, subscribe, and maybe even leave a tip. I'll catch you next time. Right, just as a brief explanation for people who've heard me use the word tele-snaps. Episodes 2 and 4 of this particular series of the Crusade are what's called tele-snap reconstructions. They're made of what are obviously things called tele-snaps. They're photos, in other words. The chap that took them was a fellow called John Cura, and he set them up. He set up a camera, a particularly good quality fast camera, to take photos of a TV screen while an episode of a given show was being broadcast, and would then sell those photos to any interested buyer, including the BBC and a lot of actors. Prior to the existence of things like VHS, like DVDs, and like, of course, the now ubiquitous flash drives with a lot of videos on them, it was a handy way for actors to show their work to potential agents and directors. It was the then equivalent of a showreel, in other words. Right, the last line of the episode, Ella Keir's last line in this episode, I should add, is, quote, "The only pleasure left for you is death, and death is very far away," unquote. It's over the top, it's menacing, and just ever so slightly camp.